Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Systeme.io podcast with me, Natasha Pinto. Today, our guest is Kia Abrera. She's a creative entrepreneur, business coach for starting businesses, and a video branding specialist. She's also got a really lovely and super interest in developing countries and especially helping people who are starting their businesses there. So, welcome, Kia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Natasha. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, it's exciting to have you here. And before I start picking your brain on all of the amazing skills that you've got, can you first give me a little bit of your history? So take me through where you thought you were headed, career-wise, life-wise, and what put you on the path to where you are today.
Well, that's a great question because a lot of people think that I was headed towards, becoming a lawyer or becoming a doctor. But ever since I can remember, I've always had a creative itch. And I knew that that was the path that I wanted to take. And I'm one of the really blessed ones to have really, really supportive parents, especially from a country like the Philippines, where there's there's sort of a cut path, or people tend to think that there's this one path to success, right? That it's all linear. Um, the usual thing that people think about here in the Philippines is that study hard, get a job, climb the corporate ladder, become a doctor, have a license, and that's the only way that you can excuse me, and that's the only way that you can be successful. But usually, the creative career is frowned upon here in the Philippines. So, fortunately for me, I did not. I put my hand over my ears whenever people would tell me not to go there. You're just wasting your brain. I mean, people have actually told me that. But, at best, my parents have told me that there is no use pursuing a path that you don't like because at best you're going to be mediocre at it. So I'm very blessed to have had, to be surrounded by people who supported me, who supported my dream and encouraged me to really pursue what I wanted. And that's where we are today. That's what we're doing today.
I think that's fantastically lucky, and I agree. It's not generally the path that parents are like very encouraging of, especially if they're not in the creative sphere themselves. There tends to be that kind of, you need to get a job that we know will be stable, that we can see has a clear path, whereas something in the creative sphere gives you a lot more opportunities, but comes with a greater risk, I think, sometimes. However, I'm really glad
Yes.
you're super successful at it. And I think you've taken it in a really interesting direction. I think the online sphere, even though it is quite established at this point, there's still so much growth and so much potential for change and being able to do something different that, yeah, why not? Why not take your creative skills or any skills that you have online?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's also because we tend to have the wrong idea about creativity. We think that creativity is only attributed to, people learning how to draw or
Yeah.
doing visual things. But to me, early on in my career, I have come across different kinds of definitions for creativity. And one of my favorite ones is just problem solving. So if you have a problem that you're passionate about solving, you have creativity. And I do think that everybody, every single person is born innately creative. It's just that, we've grown into society, into a certain society, or we've grown into a certain environment where our creativity was forced into hibernation. And then we become afraid. We become fearful of, what others have laid down before us. Or there's the fear of, is this practical? Is
Yeah.
what I'm pursuing practical? Is it going to earn me money? Is it going to make me a starving artist?
Yeah.
So I think it's also part of my mission, I believe, is to redefine what creativity is and then to encourage people to be brave about their creativity again.
I like that. Definitely. And then before we start getting into this idea of creativity and problem solving, which I'm really excited to dig into. Can you give us a kind of ballpark comparison? So, when you started an online business, how were you doing? Because I think perhaps even if your parents had seen that, like, first little bit, they were like, what are you doing? Maybe you should have become a doctor or gone the more typical path, versus how well you're doing now, just to inspire some of our audience that it's not going to be tough forever.
Yeah, well, just like a lot of people, I started my journey in the employment space. But just to give a little preface to that, I actually pursued a degree in film. It's because I loved different avenues of creativity. I was a performer. I was into writing. I was into visuals. So I think everything came together in the field of film. So and then when I graduated, I went into advertising because I think about 3 years into my studies, I met someone who worked in advertising. He became a really amazing mentor. His name is Nap Hamir. And he's an amazing advertising director, but it's also the way that he mentored me that got me to fall in love with advertising. And it wasn't because, pursue advertising because the money's there. It wasn't because of that. It was because of the way that he passionately showed us how is it like to create in the advertising space and how people actually responded to it. And then of course, I learned from a few other mentors that showed me how, what's it like for you to just respond to a calling that's so powerful, to a calling, a creative calling, as I would like to say it. And so I started my career in advertising. I became a marketing officer for a small company. And then I worked my way to becoming, I was actually in one job after the other because I was kind of exploring at that stage, like we all are after graduation, So yeah. I became a marketing officer, and then I became an SEO junior editor. and then, and then it was about a year or two before I landed my dream job as a copywriter for an advertising agency. And that was where everything was just full blown. I was enjoying every single bit of the brainstorming session, and I was just enjoying the process every single day. And I think that's also when I began to validate that, if you really love what you're doing, the success of it just follows. And so after that, I went on tour with my choir. So I had to quit my job. I went on tour for 3 months, and then I got back to the Philippines. And then I became an account executive for a smaller advertising agency. And then I became an account manager. So, it came to a point where I felt like the burnout of it, I got burned out in advertising. But it wasn't because I didn't like what I was doing. It was just too much. There was too much. I felt like I didn't have any rest. So, and at a certain point, I then felt my creativity take the backseat. Everything was just becoming a requirement. So, at the end of like a year and a half in the company, or almost 2 years in the company, that's where I met my then boyfriend, now my husband. We quit at the same time, and then we created our own. So that was, I think, already 6 or 7 years into my career. And then I quit, and then that's when we started our own. That's when we started our own agency. So when we started our agency, it was just a partnership. We were just catering to every single thing. Again, when you start a business, you're also in the exploratory stage for a long time.
Yeah.
So, we didn't have a niche just yet. We just knew that we wanted to have our own thing. We wanted to be accountable for our own success. So we started small, just serving small clients here and there. And then, but the thing there is, with every single client that we had, big or small, we gave it our 150%. So that grew. because it was like word of mouth on steroids, and everybody referred us, and then we just grew, and then we narrowed things down. We found our niche in social impact marketing. We closed our first big client like a year into our business.
Oh,
and
wow.
that first big client was USAID. And that's when we fell in love with social impact, with the power of creativity to create social impact to uplift society. And that's when we started creating more for development agencies, for local government, and things that uplift society. And even if we do work with corporate clients, we always look at the human-centered side of it. So, and then in 2020, that's when I started to have my personal brand. I opened my personal brand on TikTok in 2021. And that's when I went full blast with my education ecosystem. So I started a second company as an educator, catering mostly to starting creative entrepreneurs, primarily in developing countries, starting with my own in the Philippines.
Okay,
so yeah, that's where we are now.
How long was that journey roundabout? So you said you spent 6-7 years on the normal corporate or the more normal corporate ladder, and then how long have you been running your own businesses for now?
For the agency, Braveworks Inc., we started as a partnership, and we're now a corporation. Okay. So with 4 partners, we've been around for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
But my education ecosystem it's like newborn. I've been doing consulting work since 2019. And then I started going beta with my programs in 2020. And then I officially made it into a company in 2021. So officially, it's less than a year.
Oh, wow.
My education brand. So that's it. Yeah, that's where we are right now. And we've grown it to my company now has been grown to 8 figures here in the Philippines, at least in Philippine currency. And then my education ecosystem has just hit 7 figures in our currency, even if it's just less than a year. So, there's so many lessons along the way that I'm excited to share.
That's an incredible story. And I think people might be a little intimidated about the time you've spent, but I think, so we have a similar point in there. I also studied film, but more on the theatre side. So I have my honors degree in writing and directing for theatre, so for stage plays. And I also thought that was kind of the perfect marriage for me, because I love all creative things. I loved writing, I loved painting, set design, music, all of it kind of married together. And the way that they can put it together on stage, I was like, that's fantastic. I never really considered like actual film, because I was like, oof, technology's never really been my thing, and yet here I am.
We learn it all along the way.
Yeah, you kind of muddle along until you work it out and spend a lot of time on YouTube educating yourself. But I think that is kind of a common thread for everyone who's starting off in entrepreneurship, especially digital entrepreneurship, is that you've got your skill set of the thing that you know, and then you've slowly got to kind of adapt it, tweak it, and then learn the systems that'll make it boom. All right.
Yeah.
Now I would like to dig into this idea that you have of all entrepreneurs as creatives and all creatives as entrepreneurs. So how do people go about marrying creativity with business? Because you're right in saying that we usually associate creativity with someone who can paint, someone who can draw, someone who can create this physical aesthetic marvel. But how do you put that into business?
Well, I mentioned earlier, Natasha, before we hit the record button, that I think of creativity as problem solving. It's that simple. And I actually fell in love with the method of design thinking. It's using creativity for you to solve problems. And the entire methodology of design thinking, for me, the best part of that is that you start with listening. You start with empathy. You start with what people need instead of forcing yourself into people's daily lives. So in creative entrepreneurship, for me, it's using your creativity to solve people's problems. So, and when I say creativity, it's not something that you're forcing. It's something that's innate. And that's why I always encourage people to pick something that you love doing. Because, especially in today's times, right? Everything is so accessible. Information is there at the drop of a hat. And a lot of people get intimidated by too much information around the internet. And I think if we just double down, there's so many ways for us to earn money nowadays. So why not pick something that you love, right? So one of my mentors, his name is Chris Do. He's always about teaching people how to live a life or how to make a living doing what they love. And I resonate so much um, with that mission or with that kind of vision, because ever since I was a kid, that's what I was encouraged to do. So I think it's just about high time for everybody to start believing in their own creativity again, believing in their own ability to help people. Because, a lot of people will tell you, just follow your passion, follow your passion. Well, passion is great. I think there has to be passion for something. So for me, it's about being passionate about solving a problem. So if I was going to rephrase that, don't follow your passion, follow a problem that you're passionate about solving. Okay. Because that really produces the grit for us. And then we start to connect those dots in our head. And for me, that's creativity. So when you start to connect those dots between what people need and what I can do uniquely, what I can do, what I can do to serve these people, they're going to be willing to pay for a solution. They're going to be willing to make their problem go away. So if you're someone who's passionate about solving that, and you have the skill set, and you're passionate about learning more of what your skill set is, then that's enabling you to create out of joy, to create a life that you actually love. And at the same time, you're creating impact. So there's like a marriage of all of these beautiful concepts if we only start to be brave about creating again.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest issues that people struggle with when they kind of are on that path towards creative entrepreneurship might be the thought that perhaps what they're passionate about is not necessarily something that they can make money at, especially with longevity in mind. I think depending on certain skills, it can be quite difficult to find the way to help people solve problems. So how do you have any advice to help people find how they can apply that passion creatively to solve problems, but also to an audience that is willing to pay for them? Because it's wonderful to solve problems, and I think that should fundamentally be our goal, but it is also important to put food on the table.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a really, that's a tough question to answer for a lot of people who are starting. Just because, this is something also that Chris told me when we were talking about, people who have these conflicts in developing countries, right? Because, you need to have food on the table. You need to start with survival, because people in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The most bottom, the most foundational is people's need for survival, right? For me, it's looking at something that's going to make you money first, just for you to take care of those needs, if that is something that you have access to. Because there are some people who have better access than others.
Yes, definitely.
So I think it's a matter of two things, right? First is for you to find a process that you're comfortable in doing, that you're not going to sacrifice the non-negotiables. And then the second one for me is to concentrate on the power of the next doable step. What is within your immediate vicinity that you can solve for now before you go to the next step? So a lot of us, when we start, entrepreneurship also is sensationalized by social media. Like, you can earn 6 digits a month in 90 days, And so when people don't earn the 6 digits a month in 90 days, they get frustrated and they think they're a failure. But I think it's very important for us to concentrate again on the power of the next doable step, because our journey is not the same as others. And when people sensationalize, or when they exaggerate entrepreneurship on social media, it makes the other starting entrepreneurs feel like they're not being seen. That they're not real entrepreneurs because they're not earning this much. But we're all different. So because I do a lot of work with people from developing countries, people who are starting or in developing countries, usually what I would and this is not an original idea, but I got this from a TED talk. I forget his name, but he said there's power in the 7 to 1 a.m. The 7 to 1 rule. So the idea is you have your day job, the one that's paying for all your bills, the one that's putting food on the table. And for people, this is a reality for people in developing countries. You don't just leave all that behind, especially if you have a family. You don't just leave all that behind and then pursue my dream, So that's sacrificing your non-negotiables. So for me, it's if you have a job, let's say from 9 to 5, 9 to 7, you concentrate the 7 to 1 into building your business. So even if it's for me, you have the power to set yourself up for success. So if you think you can manage to set aside 30 minutes or 1 hour a day for you to build your business, then consistently build your business on the side. And if you're a mom of 4, it's kind of impossible for you to go 3 hours just to build your business on the side on the 7 to 1 a.m. Spectrum.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to control what you can control, but be disciplined and consistent about it. So, if you don't start anything, you're never going to finish anything. So it's okay for you to start with 30 minutes a day, maybe read something, maybe learn something, start to upskill, start to market yourself, start looking at start looking at the problems that you can solve with your core skill sets, and then look at the feasibility of it. Just set 30 minutes aside per day for you to work on it and do it consistently every single day. So within an entire year, you would have spent 100+ hours working on your business. And that's already so much better than doing nothing because you're intimidated. Right. Yeah. So that's if you're starting something and then you're still a little bit afraid, that's okay. Just concentrate on your next step and then on your next step. You don't have to see the whole staircase yet. Just focus on the next.
Definitely. I think that's excellent advice, especially for people starting out, because they kind of almost get vertigo at how much is still in front of them, how far away they are from their goals. But if you keep focusing on the next step and the next step, that's the only way that you're going to progress. Even the people who are at the top had to take the first step, and potentially just as slow as you. Yeah. And then I ask you what the three essential skills that you might need to succeed as a creative entrepreneur. So what are 3 things that you think are vitally important, cannot be ignored, something that people should focus on?
Skills, So to succeed in entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Okay. Marketing definitely is number 1 for me. Marketing. Especially these days, content marketing is something that I would always encourage people to do. The second is communication. You need to learn excellent communication skills, especially these days where we all have global access. So everybody needs to be understood. The way that you position yourself, the way that you tell people how you solve problems, it's very crucial. Because it's not going to matter how good you are. If you don't communicate that well, people are not going to believe you. So that's the second, communication. And the third for me, I think leadership. You got to learn leadership as well, especially if you're going to scale. You're going to be the one to steer the ship of your business. So even if you're a solopreneur, whenever you start working with clients, you got to be able to lead. So, you're not going to be, it's not going to work as well if you don't have the right leadership skills. So those are the three for me. You learn leadership, you learn marketing, and you learn communication in any order.
Yeah, definitely. And I think those three are completely essential. As you've said, you need to be able to get yourself out there, because otherwise you're never going to find your audience. You need to be able to communicate with them so that they are understood, you are understood, everyone is on the same page. And then definitely you do need those leadership skills. I think those are sometimes undervalued, especially by solopreneurs, because they think, oh no, it's just me on my own. I don't really need to be as in charge or as assertive, but it is still really, really important.
Yeah. Because if you need to, in order for you to be an established expert, of course, everybody wants to go to that direction where they're the go-to. So you really need the leadership skills, and a lot of people take that for granted.
Definitely. And then can we dig in a little bit more into your social impact marketing agency? So can you define what that means? Simplify it in a sentence or two if possible, and then kind of broaden it. Explain what that means, how it happens, who you choose to work with, that kind of thing.
Right. So actually, we made it social impact marketing because actually the real term is social marketing. And a lot of people get confused when we say social marketing because they think it's social media marketing. So just to make it simple, social marketing or social impact marketing is the kind of marketing that uplifts society. So it's not, the usual traditional marketing where you make this entire strategy, you make you make these campaigns in order to ultimately sell a product. Right. In order to create a brand loyalty, in order to create brand awareness. Bottom line is you're helping the company's revenue. For social impact marketing, it's not profit driven. It's designed to help people and communities, society. It's designed to help uplift society. So we work a lot with government agencies, for example. We work a lot with development agencies. We work on campaigns that, for example, helps in the awareness of the COVID situation, helping people go through I think one of the biggest campaigns on COVID that we ever had was helping the micro entrepreneurs open back up in the midst of the pandemic because people are losing business, so we wanted to help them to open safely. Another one was we went to a place here in the Philippines that was stricken by terrorism. And then we created campaigns in order to help them get back on their feet. So again, it's very community driven. It's very society driven. But when we also work with corporations, we always look at the human centered side of it, the human impact. So there's, of course, the bottom line when we work with the corporations or with the brands, it's still affecting the profit margins, right? It's still affecting the bottom line. However, the kind of messaging that we always anchor on is one that helps uplift society. So maybe we focus on the CSRs, or maybe we rebrand them in a way that makes them more relatable, in a way that makes them more, human impacting. So that's how I would kind of broaden the idea of social impact marketing. Just because even in our own country, this is a fairly new concept. So
Mm.
so yeah. So we fell in love with social impact marketing when we first did our work with USAID, and this is something that we really wanted to concentrate on.
I think it's a wonderful, wonderful way of kind of putting bread on your table, but also still giving back to not just one community, but to several communities and kind of humanizing parts of the more capitalist aspects of society that can kind of get lost in this, I don't know, money hungry, robotic nature. Whereas I think with this kind of thing, it kind of puts the human aspect back into it because especially if you're one of those people who loves the stock markets, who stares at the numbers all the time, it can dehumanize a lot of the impact that a brand might have on society. But I think with
Mhm.
even just looking back into adverts I've seen, the social impact marketing is incredibly strong, especially after something as tragic and like widespread as COVID.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, that's one of the reasons why we really funneled down to becoming a social impact marketing agency. It's because of what happened 2 years ago. So, no, 3 years ago now,
Yeah.
2019. Yeah. So a lot of businesses shut down. A lot of societies have shut down. We lost a lot of people. So it's a matter of helping people get back on their feet. And we did several campaigns for COVID-19, and we saw the impact of it. We saw the power of people's creativities put together in order to solve a problem. So again, it's creativity at work. It's creativity just solving problems. And for us, what better way to make use of our creativity than to solve one of the biggest problems that's in
Yeah.
our lives today, right? So and so then it goes far beyond COVID-19. It goes far beyond what we're experiencing now in a pandemic. It's now looking at how we can uplift more communities with what we do.
And I think it's wonderful because even though you have sort of niched down, you've still got this incredibly wide audience because technically your audience is all people who need upliftment. And I think that's everybody. Um,
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about one of your other specialities. So video. So you studied film in university. Very cool. I remember working with some of the film students at my university and doing voiceover work for them. Always entertaining. How do you take that speciality into business, especially for someone starting out new? Say they might have a passion or a knack for film. Do you suggest that they lean into it at the beginning as they're starting their small online business? Is it something worth considering for a content strategy, or are there other better ways to get started?
In terms of starting an, an online business, like what their skill sets are?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yeah.
Well, I again, I went into film because it was a marriage of everything that I love doing, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to go into filmmaking, or it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be, a director for films and movies, because sometimes we tend to think of, or we tend to confuse creativity with creative skills. So if you have an avenue where you get to train and practice your creativity as much as possible, you can take it. So if, for example, I have some friends who were nurses and then they became account managers for advertising agencies. So it feels like it's so, where did that go,
Yeah.
But then the reason why they thrived as account managers is because they knew how to listen. They're very empathic. And nurses are very empathic. They got trained in their profession to be very empathetic people. And they used that when they started to pursue something that they're actually passionate about. Not to say that they didn't like being a nurse, but or it's bad to be a nurse, but it's getting them from something that they needed to do in order to survive and then going to a path that they actually wanted to do. So, there are a lot of people in the nursing profession who are amazing at their job. They really love it. And, they're making a living doing what they love. And that's amazing. That's amazing for me. But not everybody loves that path in the same manner that not everybody loves the advertising path, So what I'm saying is, in every single career path that you feel like you don't want right now, if you're stuck in something that you don't really like, you can find something in that career zone that you're currently at that you're going to use when you finally pursue something that you love. And Pia Silva, who was one of my first business coaches, she has this TED talk that where she was telling people about the power of banking in your confidence. So, she used to be someone who sells. I think she was in real estate at some point. So when she was doing real estate, she honed the power of her sales. So now she's a business coach and she's also a brand strategist. So again, you're banking on those different skill sets that you have that you're not even sure, you're not even aware that you're already very good at going into entrepreneurship, right? Yeah. So let's just say you're in a call center right now. You're not aware that you're actually improving in your communication skills. You're improving in your empathetic skills. It doesn't necessarily have to be our definition of creativity, but you're actually creating something because you're able to navigate and troubleshoot people's problems on the phone, right? And that's something that's also very crucial in terms of being an entrepreneur. If you're in the medical profession and you wanted to make that shift into becoming a creative entrepreneur, you have so many skill sets in the medical profession that you can use for your entrepreneurship. You have the skill of empathy. You have the skill of listening to people's problems and diagnosing. Oh my goodness. People who know how to diagnose are rock stars. Like they know how to clarify and spot a problem, and then they can stop it. And that's very crucial in entrepreneurship as well. So my advice is to not take your creativity and just let it be bound in the circles of your creative skills, because you have so many other disciplines that you're learning along the way. There's so many skill sets that you're learning along the way. That's not just the tangible skill sets that we tend to associate entrepreneurship with.
Definitely. And I think it's a very true thing that people don't realize, is that actually you going through the motions of just doing your day job is actually upskilling you, and you take so much more than the typical skill from what you've done before. My former career was teaching. I'm a high school educator. I'm used to working with teenagers, so I'm very good at like writing reports, and admin is easy for me because I've gotten into the motions of being good at it. And I love copy editing because I've spent most of my time reading people's essays and all of these other things that you can do, and being a decent communicator, because you have to work with children who are usually at their worst when they see you. So agreed, it's definitely something you can take more than what you perceive through to your next role. Now I want to dig in a little bit to the online courses that you started creating during lockdown. So it makes sense why lots of people have sort of leaned into that. You were stuck at home, and there's very little chance for you to go anywhere, and a lot of people were stuck at home unable to do anything. So many people turned online looking to upskill, looking to kind of maybe take a step in a different direction, keep themselves busy. So what kind of courses did you create? And was it part of this, like the social impact that you were aiming to make as well?
Yeah, well, when it comes to social impact, my agency is actually doing done for you services. So, that's where the entire communication strategy and all of the done for you services are. But in my education ecosystem, which is what we call the Brave Creators Lab, so we have three. Right. Okay. So we have three different courses under there. The first one is called Creative Entrepreneurship Fundamentals, and it's designed specifically for starting creatives. So, if people wanted to, make their mark and go from launch or from ideation, from ideation all the way to onboarding their first client and serving them and then getting that glowing testimonial at the end. That's like the entire documentation of our journey when we did that. And then we created a course out of it. So, it starts with helping you helping you get the process of finding a niche, because I don't believe that when you start, you need to have a niche right away, because I believe that finding a niche is a process in itself. And you need validation as well. So you need to start somewhere a little bit generalized. It doesn't really matter as long as you start, and then narrow down as you go along. And that's what we teach in that course. So it's the process of setting yourself up. And then there's the process of learning how to be a problem solver and thinking like a strategist. There's the process of serving. How are you going to market yourself? How are you going to do that first discovery call? How are you going to get your first client? How are you going to onboard? And then the end is like, how are you going to manage the project in order to give a seamless experience and then get that glowing testimonial? So it's a 4-part course that we created in order to document that entire process. And then we give resources. We have a Facebook group to help people out. So that entire community. And then the second one is called the Brave Creators Lab, the membership. So we created a very accessible membership because we wanted to make quality entrepreneurial learning accessible. So it's not just me actually teaching inside. I've had Chris Doe teach a class inside. I've had Annalie Hansen, who's an incredible brand strategist. She taught a class inside. I've had TEDx speakers in there. But we made it so accessible. I think it's just like $47 a month, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's what we charge in order to get people in. Because I believe that entrepreneurial learning should be accessible. And that's the reason why we don't get a lot of really good educated entrepreneurs, creatives who wanted to be entrepreneurs, is because they don't know how to start. So we wanted to make that accessible for them. And we wanted to make like a continuous learning process. That's why we created a membership out of it. And then the third is the more like high ticket intensive, which I call the Brave Video Creators Intensive. And this is where I dive deeper into video and content marketing. So yeah, that's it. And then I still do one-on-one consulting, but I don't do it every single time. Like I only have space for like 4 clients a month, and that's it.
Yeah, it does get to be a lot, but I think that membership course is a great one because it kind of gives them the freedom to interact with the content, stay there for as long as they actually need, and it's a fairly affordable entry to it. And because there's so much variety, it's more than just getting like one book from one person and then not getting anything. You've got more.
Yeah, and then it's absolutely, and it's content that they can go back to again and again. We strive to make it as timeless as possible. It's still in its beta stage right now. So again, we wanted to make it easy for the learning to be integrated into their daily lives. And so we do spot coaching, we do accountability coaching. So all of these different things to make sure that they're on the path to being a sustainable and successful entrepreneur.
That's great. And then my last big question for you kind of is about social media. So as a teacher who had taught for the first year of lockdown, so 2020, I was teaching full-time, still sort of in class, outside of class. I got to witness the TikTok phenomenon from a safe distance. But what you're doing with TikTok is interesting and still quite, I don't think it's as widespread as it will be or could be. But how have you taken TikTok and leveraged it for brand strategy, but also for education? Because I think the general view of that platform is, oh, it's just for entertainment, it's short videos, it's silly dances, but it's so much more. So how do you use it?
Um, you know, I had that mindset before where I thought TikTok is just, oh, it's people dancing and people lip syncing. I started actually my account in last year, 2021, January of 2021, and I wanted to explore what it was all about because a lot of people were raving about it. So I said, I just created an account to start consuming content on the platform, and then I came across Mark Tilbury. I came across, I think he's one of my favorites on the platform, and he teaches people financial education. And I said, you can actually use this platform now. You can actually leverage it to teach people something. And that really piqued my interest. And so I started to just explore the platform. I wasn't really posting anything within the first like 3 months. And then I got a TikTok coach. His name is Joseph Todd. He's also on YouTube. He's pretty active on YouTube. So I got him as a coach. I hired him for one-on-one, and he taught me all about the algorithm. And I got so mind blown about the TikTok algorithm that I started to play with it myself. I started posting content. It took a while for me to find my groove because, like everybody else, I didn't know what niche I was going to focus on. Was I going to focus on entrepreneurship or video marketing, or am I going to content marketing or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then I think that was May, or like just going into the third quarter of the year, I had one video blow up, and I was talking about purpose. Actually, I was just talking about purpose, about the next doable thing of purpose that doesn't reveal itself right away. So that blew up to, it got like, I think 100,000 views, and got me like, I think almost 3,000 followers overnight.
Oh, wow.
And then I started to look at people's comments. I started to look at the way people interacted with my content and the things that they were asking. And then I said, oh my goodness, this is a real problem. People are scared of their own creativity. There's like a massive throng of comments that came, I'm just afraid to start. And then I saw this video, and then I was so encouraged by this video. And then they started asking questions. And then I started creating content out of those questions. And that's when things started to blow up. And so I think come October, I started doubling down, and I started posting 2 videos a day at that point. I was already working with Chris Do as my business coach. And then that's when it just blew out of the water. So right now I'm already at almost 120,000 followers on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's because I also believe I'm also currently managed directly by TikTok Philippines. So they call us edu creators.
Oh, cool.
So edu creators, it's because they are now also trying to encourage people to utilize TikTok for education. And they tested this by creating a campaign here in the Philippines called Edu Wow. So it's like, wow, education, right? So
Yes.
Edu Wow. And it got a record because it blew up to 1 billion views for the campaign in like 4 months. So it means that people are on the platform as well to consume educational content in the same manner that they like going to the platform because of the entertainment. So while you already have people coming there for the entertainment, why don't you just try creating something that's going to educate them? And then they're going to consume that. If they like it, they're going to consume it. So yeah, that's what happened with my TikTok journey. And right now, that's all I'm using it for. I grew to 120,000 followers without a single dance move. So if you have some ideas, if you have a unique thought process that you want to share, if you want to teach people something, you just want to serve people genuinely, then go ahead and record yourself on your phone, tell people what you think, and some people are going to listen.
I think that's fantastic. All right. An awesome way to leverage TikTok, and very impressive that you did not bust a single move to get those nearly 1,000 followers. It's amazing. Now, a few short questions. So, is there one piece of advice, one line that you would give to your 18-year-old self looking back?
I think it's the same thing that I tell people over and over again, and that's just to be brave and create.
Be brave and create. That's a good one. And then, what was the project that was the most fun for you to work on? What did you enjoy the most?
Oh, that was definitely the one where we worked with a city um, who was a victim of terrorism. I mean, it wasn't fun because because of, for obvious reasons, but it was because I worked with a team that's just multicultural and multi background. We really got to visit the place. I think it was the most challenging, and that's the reason why it was the most fun for us. It was the most fulfilling as well when we finished it.
That's a great one. And I think, yeah, being able to interact and work collaboratively with people from different cultures is an experience that you cannot miss out on. And then my last question is, where can our listeners find you? So if you let me know all of your tags and everything, social media, even your websites, we'll put them in the description.
Yeah, so my main platform right now obviously is TikTok. So you can find me there at Kia Abrera. That's it. No underscores, no anything. And then I'm also on Instagram at Kia underscore Abrera.
Okay.
Those are my two main platforms where you can find me. Otherwise, if you want to know more about what we do and you want to take part, it's kia-abrera.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Kia, for joining me and giving me your time. And thank you to our listeners today. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on a podcasting app, subscribe to the Systeme podcast so that you never miss an episode. Systeme.io is a digital marketing software platform packed with all the tools you need to grow your online business.